Hi, I'm Dr. Nixon with Healing Peak Regenerative Medicine's Longevity Channel, and today we are going to talk shoulders. The shoulder is the most mobile joint in the human body, which means it can be the most unstable joint in the human body as well. It's a ball and socket joint. So, your humerus fits into your scapula, and that can move like this, and that's what a ball and socket joint means. Like, for example, the knee is a hinge joint. It goes two directions, okay? But a ball and socket joint can go many directions. And the shoulder is most vulnerable in the anterior part, which is the front, which is why you see a lot of dislocations in the shoulder happen in the front of the shoulder. It's really rare to see any kind of other dislocation in the shoulder. But what this means is that when you have a super mobile joint, it leaves it open to many different types of injuries. And so I wanted to address it because a lot of people have shoulder pain and it gets widely undertreated and maybe not treated correctly in a lot of ways. And there's a lot that can be done for it. I think a lot of people suffer with shoulder pain and don't do anything about it because they kind of know that their options are limited. And I am here to tell you that there are many things you can do that you may not have thought of before for shoulder pain, and so I just kind of wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. I have a model. I will bring it when I start to address shoulder issues one by one, but this video is primarily just to talk about the shoulder and to talk about what different things go wrong and how to kind of know where you fall and who you should go see about it. So most commonly when someone says they have shoulder pain, it usually involves the supraspinatus muscle and tendon. And that muscle travels, it's at the top of the shoulder here, and then it travels underneath this shoulder bone, right? The hard part right here on your shoulder, it travels underneath there and then attaches right here on the humerus. And that by and large is an issue because it's traveling through a really, small space, that the muscle and that tendon's traveling through a really small space and then needs to attach on the humerus, and then you're moving all the time, right? And if there's a decreased space because of other tension or friction or injury, arthritis, systemic inflammation, if there is something going on there that's creating an issue where that supraspinatus tendon and the rest of the, like the very end of the muscle before it turns into that, is traveling, it's going to make tendonitis or even micro tearing, and then you have essentially a partial rotator cuff tear. So when you hear someone say I have a rotator cuff problem or I have rotator cuff issues, like 90% of the time it's going to be supraspinatus, and either they will, if it's a full thickness tear, there are things that you will not be able to do, and that's a surgical issue. And so if someone tells you, a doctor or whoever's assessing you says, hey, you have a full thickness tear of a tendon, then you're a surgical candidate at that point. There's really not a lot you can do besides surgery to get mobility and use of that joint back to the degree you could if you had surgery. And so that's really the only time that I see surgery as a significant option, where you don't really have a lot of other options. And then the other one is shoulder replacement, when deterioration of the shoulder is so extreme that there's really nothing left that you can do other than replace the shoulder joint. Joint replacements really only last 10 to 15 years max. And so you really don't want to be replacing the same joint multiple times in your lifetime. And surgeons don't really want to be doing that either. And so they will generally say, hey, you're not there yet. Just suffer with your pain until it's time, right? But that's not really a solution. In the meantime, you become, less likely to use that joint, less likely to be active or do things that harm it. And so while your joint is waiting to deteriorate more, your body sort of deteriorates too, and that joint actually deteriorates even more. The surrounding structures that are supporting it are deteriorating more until you can replace it. That's not really a great way, to get your shoulder ready for surgery that we know is inevitable and going to happen in the future, right? And so people get stuck in this place where they're like, well, I'm suffering, but I just have to, and there's nothing I can really do, and I'll just not use it as much, or I'll just stop playing tennis, or I'll just, stop carrying my kids around or whatever. So You don't have to do that. There's lots that can help that does not involve taking over-the-counter pain medication. And so one of those things is physical therapy. Finding a really highly qualified physical therapist that knows how to treat shoulders and knows how to help you strengthen the rotator cuff muscles of the shoulder will help you get a long time out of that shoulder joint and will help decrease pain and structure you correctly ergonomically while you're working or doing your daily life activities so that you don't exacerbate it, so that you can do more activities. And also strengthening those rotator cuff muscles will keep that use in the joint over, the rest of your life. And then when you go to get the surgery, if you need a joint replacement, if that's what it comes down to, that shoulder is going to be in a much better place to have surgery done to it than if, you just kind of let the whole thing deteriorate, if that makes any sense. And so then the other things that can happen with the shoulder, you can get tendonitis in any of the rotator cuff muscles. Infraspinatus and supraspinatus by and large are like the most common types of tendonitis. And there is, tendinosis and tendonitis, and I'm not going to get into acute or chronic inflammation of those areas. But the point being is that once it's long term, it calcifies, the tendon calcifies, and that becomes a weak tendon. And so if you have tendonitis, you definitely want to be getting that treated so that it doesn't become calcific and then become very vulnerable to micro tearing and then potentially full thickness tearing. When there's micro tearing and it's been going on for a long time and you go to reach for something either in front of you, up high and grab it off the shelf in your kitchen, or you go behind you to reach your purse or something in the back seat of your car and pull it up, if there's been long-term micro tearing in that tendon, then it will rupture, and it will either rupture all the way or almost all the way, and again, then you're a surgical candidate. So we don't want to see people not treat tendonitis that's been going on for long periods of time, because that could really cause, a severe issue that, it's not good. So just be aware of that. If you have tendonitis, it's important to get it treated. It sounds benign, but it could be an issue if you just keep letting it go long term. Okay, so moving on. So the other things that can happen to the shoulder is frozen shoulder, which is adhesive capsulitis. It's when the capsule of the shoulder adheres to itself. So it doesn't allow the shoulder to move the way that it should. The shoulder kind of locks in place, and then it's no longer able to actually get that fluid motion. It's very hard in the conventional medical model to treat, and that often is treated with PT. It's often not treated correctly, and frozen shoulder in both men and women, unless there's a history of significant trauma that caused it, is by and large related to a hormonal problem, and a naturopathic doctor who knows how to treat that correctly, which would just be a question like, do you know how to treat frozen shoulder hormonally due to a hormonal imbalance? Then if they say no, that's not the doctor to go to. And so frozen shoulder by and large is related to a hormonal imbalance, and so that needs to get treated. Otherwise, a frozen shoulder will just keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back. It's that or a systemic inflammatory issue all over the body. And so there's a few different reasons why frozen shoulder happens, but if there isn't an actual point in time when you can say, I injured it, this is what happened to it, and now, there's adhesive capsulitis or frozen shoulder, that needs to be addressed from a systemic standpoint, meaning looking at internal medical problems in the body, and then also treating the frozen shoulder through PT, acupuncture, prolotherapy, or PRP. And that's all I'm really going to say about that. I'll do a whole nother video on frozen shoulder because it's a complex issue and people suffer with it for a long time, and there's really no need to do that. So we've covered tendonitis and tendinosis. We've covered frozen shoulder, arthritis. Arthritis is the other thing that happens in the shoulder, as we know. And, if you've watched my other video last week that talks about what is actually arthritis and how does it manifest and what do we do to fix it. And so the best things that you can do are naturopathic things, take the supplements for joint healing and joint health. And those are also in my previous videos listed, as well as you can get prolotherapy. shut that chronic inflammatory response down, and then layer PRP on top. And PRP helps grow back the cartilage in the joint and restabilize that joint and restabilize those ligaments and tendons inside the joint. And there really isn't another therapy out there that can do something like that for you. And it's really important to be in an anti-inflammatory state when you get these injections done, because you are your own canvas for this to work. Prolotherapy and PRP only work when your immune function is responding well to healing, if that makes any sense. So the way that you treat tendonitis and tendinosis, the fastest way that you can treat it and the fastest way that you can treat arthritis is PT and prolotherapy and PRP. So those are, acupuncture. PT, acupuncture, prolotherapy, and PRP. It depends the problem that you have and how good the acupuncturist is at actually doing the acupuncture for that specific problem. Shoulders get a little tricky because of how mobile they are and how complex they are, and so you really want someone on your team who knows what they're doing and knows where to refer you if they need to refer you out to somebody, so that you get actually the appropriate care for you. So don't live with shoulder pain, because shoulder pain means probably waking up multiple times at night, which is not good for, foundations of healthcare. It means not doing a lot of the things you love. It means chronic neck pain. A lot of chronic neck pain is shoulder instability. And so your body recruits the trap and levator scap to try to stabilize, those are muscles in the neck and shoulder, and to try to stabilize that joint. And over time, you think you have neck pain, and you probably have arthritis in your neck, and it probably got blamed on arthritis in your neck, but it's actually a shoulder problem. And when the shoulder's been unstable for years and years and years, then the neck is going to start to hurt too. So don't let the shoulder issue go undiagnosed thinking that it must be your neck this whole time. So that is all for today. I hope that that was educational for you about shoulder pain and what to do about it if you have it. Please share this video with anyone you know that has shoulder problems or has shoulder pain or is saying they can't sleep because they have shoulder pain or suffering in any way, because there are options out there for them besides surgery and cortisone injections or PT that didn't work for them. There are solutions, true, real, long-term solutions to get them out of pain and out of taking over-the-counter medications and out of just suffering from their day-to-day life. So please share this video. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, you guys.